Hello, dear viewers, and welcome back to my channel. We will be diving into the mysterious beginnings of Israel and how it got trampled throughout history, leaving its people scattered, but then reclaiming their nation out of a war-torn piece of land, a holy land. This is the history of Israel. Before we talk about Israel, I'll have to give you a theology lesson, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not telling you what to believe, but this is my basic understanding of how Israel came to be. The Israelis, or Israelites at the time, trace their origins to the biblical figure of Abraham, who made a covenant with God. His descendants, including Jacob, later known as Israel, had 12 sons, and one of them, Joseph, was sold into slavery by his brothers because he was so special. Joseph rose to power in Egypt and later brought his family to Egypt during a famine. They thrived at first, but were eventually enslaved by the Egyptians. The Israelites, under the leadership of Moses, escaped slavery in Egypt, as described in the book of Exodus. This event is known as the Exodus and is foundational to Jewish identity. The Israelites would then conquer and settle the land of Canaan after wandering the Sinai desert for a while. After the conquest, there is a period of tribal leadership and judges. The book of Judges describes this area, marked by cycles of obedience, disobedience, and foreign oppression. The Israelites eventually established a monarchy, with King Saul, King David, and King Solomon as the central figures. This is the time when the first temple in Jerusalem was built. After Solomon's death, the kingdom split into the northern kingdom of Israel with 10 tribes, and the southern kingdom of Judah with 2 tribes. The northern kingdom fell to the Assyrians in 722 BC, and the southern kingdom was later conquered by the Babylonians in 586 BC. The Babylonian exile marked a significant event in Israelite history, when the Jewish population would be scattered across the empire. After the Babylonian exile, some Israelites returned to their land and rebuilt the temple in Jerusalem, as described in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. After the conquests of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC, the region of Israel came under the influence of Greek culture and was part of the Seleucid Empire. This era saw the spread of Greek language and customs, which had an impact on the Jewish community. In the 1st century BC, the Roman Republic, and later the Roman Empire, expanded their control over the Eastern Mediterranean, including the region of Israel, or should I say, Palestine, as the Romans had renamed it after Jewish revolts. During this time, King Herod the Great ruled this area as a client king under the Roman authority. The period includes events like the birth of Jesus and the ministry of John the Baptist, which are central to the religion of Christianity. Around this time, the Jews have spread all around the Roman Empire. Oh look, the Roman Empire split in 476 AD. Now the land of Palestine is under the rule of Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire. Now all the Jews are all over Europe and the Middle East, but there is still a sizable amount of Jews living in their original land. And who knows, maybe it'll stay that way. In 637 AD, the Muslim forces, led by Caliph Umar's general, captured Jerusalem. The city was surrendered, and the Muslims had full control over the entirety of Palestine. In Jerusalem, the Jews were, for the most part, allowed to practice their own religion, though they would face taxation and sometimes persecution throughout the land. There would also be drastic demographic changes, with the Muslim Arabs driving the Jewish population away, further spreading the Jewish people. After this point, this land would be conquered and reintegrated into other empires and expansive powers. This would change with the Ottoman Empire, who conquered Palestine in 1517 after the Mamluk Sultanate's occupation. Fast forward 400 years, and Palestine is still under the rule of the Ottomans. This would change during World War I, video coming soon, when the British would conquer the region. This would be assisted by the Arab tribes who were promised the entirety of the Middle East for their new kingdom. The British also promised something, this time to the Jews. It was the Balfour Declaration, promising the Jews a homeland in Palestine to please the Zionists. The region would be under the British Mandate of Palestine, issued by the League of Nations in 1922. The British would allow migration to Palestine for the Jewish population, but would then have to limit the amount so they wouldn't anger the Arab majority in the region. The British limited it to only 75,000 Jews over a period of 5 years. The Jews arriving in Palestine would create palpable tension in Palestine after the remaining years, but a distraction from all this tension would arrive shortly. The Second World War would be devastating to the Jewish population. The Holocaust committed by the National Socialists in Germany killed over a third of the Jewish population. That's 6 million dead. Even to this day, the Jewish population has not recovered from this man-made catastrophe. After the war, the British agreed to give both the Muslims and the Jews a state in Palestine. In 1947, the United Nations agreed to partition Palestine into 2 states, a Jewish state and an Arab state. The Jews agreed to the proposal, but the Arabs were furious. In Tel Aviv, on May 14, 1948, the nation of Israel was declared. After 1,800 years of being occupied by foreign powers, they were finally granted a nation. This celebration wouldn't last, as one day after they declared independence, on May 15th, the Arabs in Palestine would declare war on Israel, starting the Arab-Israeli conflict.